Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Hope you are fine. Today we are going to continue in chapter 7, but new activity, activity 5, the genes, units of genetic information, part 1. Are you ready? Let's start. What does a chromosome carry? Excellent. Genetic information. So each genetic information corresponds to a genetic trait. Examples: cleft chin, blue eyes, widow's peak, freckles, blonde hair, free earlobe, and tongue rolling. So all of these and many others genetic traits are carried on chromosomes. Now, how are these genetic information distributed on a chromosome? Let's think. Here we have a chromosome with two sister chromatids. If you look, we have something which is called genes. So, the genetic information relative to a genetic trait is localized on a chromosome as a gene. So, what is a gene? A gene, unit of a genetic information, is a part of a chromosome responsible for a specific hereditary trait. So, what do we mean by this? Let's discuss. For example, gene 1 carried traits for the eye color, gene 2 carried traits for hair colors, and so on. So, the genetic information is represented as genes on the chromosomes, and the gene is a part of a chromosome responsible for a specific hereditary trait. But how are genes arranged on a chromosome? If you look at this figure, you can find that the genes are arranged in a linear manner and occupy a determined place or locus on each chromatid. So, the genes occupying the same place on the sister chromatid carrying the same genetic information relative to a trait. So, what do you mean by this? For example, if a gene 1 is relative to the eye color, then the two sister chromatids carry the same genetic information for this trait. For example, if we talk about blue eye colors, so on the two sister chromatids, we have blue eye colors trait. This is for one chromosome with two chromatids. What do you think about the distribution of genetic information on homologous chromosomes? Let's recall some information. So, homologous chromosomes are chromosomes that are identical in size, shape, and position of centromere. They are grouped in pairs. We have one of maternal origin and one of paternal origin. Do you remember that? Let's now talk about the genes on homologous chromosomes. If you look at this figure, we have two homologous chromosomes, one from maternal and one from paternal. And according to the legends, the colored parts indicate traits and the letters indicate the genetic information. So, let's answer this question. Why the genes that occupy the same place have the same colors? Let's think a little. Great job. Because they are relative for the same genetic trait. Now, why the identical colors have same or different letters? Excellent, my dears. They carry either identical genetic information or different genetic information but relative to the same trait because they are of different origins, one from maternal and one from paternal. So, if you look at the gene that carries the letter R, so we have the same genetic information on the both homologous chromosomes. But if you look at letter A, we have one capital and one small letter, so it means that we have different genetic information on the two homologous chromosomes. Now, to conclude, the two homologous chromosomes possess the same genes at the same place. These genes carry either identical genetic information or different information but relative to the same trait. But the genes located at the same place on two sister chromatids carry identical genetic information. So for example, if you look at the first gene, we have on the homologous chromosomes different genetic information, while on the second one, they have identical genetic information. But if you look at the two sister chromatids, both sister chromatids have the same genetic information along all the chromosomes. Are you ready now to start application number 1? Okay, great. So the adjacent figure represents two homologous chromosomes. Find the genes that have the same genetic information and those that have different genetic information. Let's draw a purple box around the same genetic information and red box around the different genetic information. Please pause the video and solve it. Now, let's correct it. So if you look at the gene A, what do we have? Do we have the same color or different colors? It means that we have different genetic information or same genetic information. Excellent. So they have different genetic information. What about the gene B? Do we have the same colors which represent that we have same or different genetic information? Excellent. Gene B, it has same genetic information. What about the gene C? The same. Excellent. Gene D, wonderful. So it is also same genetic information. Now what about the gene E? Great, my dears. It has different genetic information. What about the gene F? So it has same genetic information. Great job, my dears. Let's now discuss an example of a gene on homologous chromosomes. We have a gene relative to a trait. We said that the homologous chromosomes could have the same genetic information or different genetic information. Let's take an example, gene of eye color. Here, the genetic information or eye color could be blue, green, or brown. For example, if we talk about brown and blue eyes, if they have the same genetic information, so on the two homologous chromosomes, we have brown eyes and brown eyes, or we have blue eyes and blue eyes traits, as mentioned in the figures. But if we have different genetic information, it means the two homologous chromosomes, one of these chromosomes carries blue eyes, while the second one carries brown eyes. From here, we can say that the different forms or versions of the same gene are called alleles. So what do you mean by alleles? For example, brown, green, and blue eye color are alleles of the same gene, which is color of eye, while straight hair, wavy, and curly hair are also alleles of the same gene, which is shape of hair. So as a remark, a gene might have many alleles, but an individual has only two alleles, one on each chromosome of the homologous chromosomes that are carried, one from maternal and one from paternal. So as a conclusion, the genes are Apart from the chromosomes carry specific hereditary traits, while the alleles are different forms of the same gene. We said that the genes are located in a linear manner on a chromosome. And here we have an example of chromosome number 9. And these are some genes that located on chromosome number 9. What are the non-hereditary traits determined by genes located on chromosome number 9? Very good. We have a gene responsible for the production of pigmentation of skin and eyes, gene responsible for the digestion of milk, gene responsible for the usage of fructose, gene responsible for blood groups, and a gene responsible for production of collagen. Of course, we have a lot of genes that are presented also on chromosome number 9. So, this distribution of known genes on chromosomes in a specific order is called gene map. And this is the gene map of chromosome number 9. This is another gene map of chromosome X. If you look at the chromosome X, what are the non-hereditary traits determined by gene located on chromosome X? Here we have a gene for the production of dystrophin. Dystrophin, it strengthens muscle fibers and protects them from injury or damage. We have a gene for cerebellum activity. We have a gene for blood clotting. What do you mean by blood clotting? It means to heal the injuries. We have a gene for recognition of colors. And also, as we mentioned before, we have lots of genes or other genes that are located on chromosome X. So now, are they all sexual traits? Of course, no. So, what can you deduce about the role of chromosome X? Very good. So X chromosome is important to determine the sex of the individual and the transmission of several non-sexual traits. This means that in addition to determine the sex of the individual, chromosome X carries non-sexual traits. Remarks. In human, the number of genes is estimated to be 80,000. These are distributed on the 23 pairs of chromosomes. It means that more than 3,000 genes have been localized on a chromosome. Also, sex chromosome carries genes relative not only to sex traits. After we talk about alleles and the genes and the gene map, what would happen if a gene is not functioning properly? For example, if you look at chromosome number 9, we have a gene responsible for the production of pigment of skin and eyes. What happens if this gene is not functioning properly? The cells will not be able to produce skin pigment. Excellent. And this leads to albinism. So this is a figure for an albinism. Let's now discuss about albinism. But before, let's differentiate between gene abnormality and chromosomal abnormality. Gene abnormality is due to an abnormality in a gene, while chromosomal abnormality is an abnormality in the number or shape of chromosomes. So, now, is albinism a chromosomal abnormality? Of course, no. Why? Because the number or the shape of a chromosome remains the same. What do we call this abnormality? Excellent. It is called gene abnormality because we have abnormality in a gene. Let's move now to application number 2. The lobes of ear can be either free or adherent. It means attached to the cheek. The allele for the gene that determines the trait free lobe is always expressed while The one which determines the trait adherent lobe is only expressed if it is present on each homologous chromosome. What do we mean by the trait free lobe is always expressed? It means that if we have one allele for this trait, it will be shown, okay? While the one which is responsible for the adherent lobe, it must be presented on the two homologous chromosomes. The question is, draw the figure and indicate on the homologous chromosomes the symbols of alleles, capital F for free lobe and small a for adherent lobe. Please pause the video and then we will solve it together. Let's move to the solution. So what do we have to put in a person with free lobe? Excellent. We have to write either FF, capital, or FA. Why? Since they mentioned that the allele for the gene that determined the trait-free F lobe is always expressed, while the person with the adherent lobe, we have small a and small a. Excellent. Why? Since the allele for the genes that determine the trait adherent lobe, and it is represented by small a, is only expressed if it is presented on each homologous chromosomes. Excellent work, my dears. Now, don't forget to study the summing up. Thank you, dear students. Keep safe and see you inshallah in next video. Goodbye.